Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weirdly Magical podcast, Virgo New Moon episode. And I am Louise Eddington. I'm an astrologer and a writer. I'm writer of Modern Astrology, Harness the Stars to Discover Your Soul's True Purpose. And I'm the author of another book that's going to be coming next year, title to be decided. Also, I do want to say that my book, Modern Astrology, is going to be on Audible from September the 24th. And there's not many astrology books on Audible. And that was kind of a nice surprise for me from the publisher. I'm not narrating it, though. I wish they'd asked me. That would have been good. But either way, I'm sure it's a very professional person reading it. So if you have Audible, receive a credit for that. And you can find me at louiseeddington.com, where I have a membership site where I write daily. I write on medium.com. And yeah, I'll tell you more at the end where to find me. And Jen, what about you?
Lost my notes. Anyway, it's okay. So, hi, I'm Jen. I am an Akashic mentor and healer and soul guide. I help my clients to find their true soul's choice through, connecting to their wisdom and their knowing. And I am also the creator of the Illuminating Journey cards, which I don't have a copy, but here's,
I'll show you that in a minute.
Anyway, I'll show you the card in a minute, and as well as the author of Lish Cocoon. And I have a membership site. People want to join. It's a monthly membership. Your Soul Pillow. And I also do readings, workshops, and more. Cards, workshops with the cards. And I actually have an upcoming workshop with a friend of mine. We're teaching the Akashic Records in October 20th, I believe, in Golden, Colorado. How to read the records and a couple of other things, and with a tool and an assessment. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yes, otherwise you can find me the rest at jenduchenne.com.
Well, before we dive into the new moon, just a couple of housekeeping details. If you would subscribe to your favorite podcast provider and leave us a review if possible. A written review really is helpful. We appreciate all reviews. We're also taking listener questions. We don't have any for this episode, which is fine. We've got plenty to talk about. And if you email your questions to weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com, you may be featured live on air. Just your name. We won't give out any personal details. And we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/weirdlymagical, for just $3 a month. When we get to a certain number of patrons, we're going to have patron-only content that we will record for you. Is there anything else I've missed, Jen, before I dive into just a little bit about this new moon? I don't think so.
The only thing that came to mind was switch off your cell phones, but that can't be right.
I already switched mine off.
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything else. It's just... I think we've covered everything.
Well, actually, before I talk about the new moon, which is on August the 30th, by the way, and before I talk about the astrology leading up to it, let's do the cards first this time. So Jen's going to pull a card, or she's already pulled a card from her fabulous Illuminating Journey cards, sorry.
Right, so the card that came up is this one, Soul Portal number 9. And for those that are looking, there's kind of mountains in the foreground with a what looks like kind of a cave that goes in. So it's like kind of rainbowish mountains, and in the distance, through the cave, there's a lower area that is kind of like an island with this almost diamond heart-shaped rock with a female warrior on the top. It also has a figure in the forefront with a hydrangea crown, and there's a swan, an egg, golden egg. And this number, well, not this card actually, is very sensual. It's very much to me about connecting to who you are on a deep emotional plane in the physical realm. So it's bringing that kind of soul energy into your physical plane.
And that's very Virgo to my mind.
Yes, indeed.
And the rock, the heart-shaped rock, reminds me of the true meaning of the word virgin, which is one who is whole unto herself. Anything very self-contained. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. And my card, I pulled the Queen of Swords, which is mastery of objective thinking and clarity, which is very appropriate for a Mercury-ruled new moon with so much going on around it. And so, this is kind of saying that you're cutting behind the mask. You're getting very real. She's cut a mask off, if you can see the mask there. And then the diamonds kind of behind her head, the diamond thinking is this very, very clear, straightforward kind of thought coming in from the universe to my mind too. So
Right. What's interesting is that your card has got all the blues in your background, and mine has all the kind of rainbow, which kind of matches my background.
yeah,
Kind of funny.
it is funny. Well, always happens that way, I think. So this Virgo new moon, well, let me just talk quickly about the energies coming up to it, because we're recording this on the 20th. Venus, Mars just went into Virgo. Venus is about to go into Virgo. And then the Sun enters Virgo on the 23rd. And then Juno enters Virgo on the 24th. On the same day, we have Venus conjunct Mars in Virgo, and that's starting a new Venus-Mars cycle. And then we have Mercury entering Virgo on the 29th, and then this new moon in Virgo. And the new moon, so we have this big lineup. We have Mercury, Juno, both at 2 degrees of Virgo. The Sun and Moon at 6 degrees of Virgo, and the new moon is at 6 degrees 46 minutes. Then we have Mars at 7 degrees Virgo and Venus at 11 degrees Virgo. And the new moon at 6 degrees Virgo is exactly trine, well, almost exactly, bar a few minutes, trine to Uranus in Taurus. So that's an Earth trine. Then there's a wide grand trine to Saturn in Capricorn, really, which is at 14 degrees. And the new moon is also square to Ceres in Sagittarius. And she's the great mother and goddess of the harvest and kind of the natural cycles. So that's another very earthly energy, the great mother Ceres. So this is a hugely earthy new moon, and coming after we've had some major Leo months, which has been very fun, really, very creative to my mind, up till this week. We're kind of in the embers, if you like, of the last bit of fire, as it were, before we really dive into the earthly realms. So we'll talk in great depth about this. Interestingly, Virgo, as I said, is Mercury ruled. I think I said that when I pulled the card. And Mercury is in Virgo too. So this is a very, very Virgo new moon. So Jen, you want to dive into the numbers? And
yes. So fascinating, of course, that this new moon is on the end of the month, on the 30th, and not in the following month, as we had with the previous new moon, which was in the US, was in last month, but in the rest of the world was in this month. So that's the black moon, the super moon.
It is
So
a
what's
super moon, too. It's the
right?
20th.
That's the super moon, exactly. So that's pretty cool. Either way, everyone gets their black moon. So the fascinating thing is we're still in the 20th month. So by the universal numbers, we're in a 20 months. And we're having this on a 30-day. So we have already double zeros, which is divine, support, divine energy in there, which I do think has a lot to do with what's happening. A lot of divine energy or light or the hand of the divine kind of guiding us here. So it feels quite sacred, but it also feels like we're entering a new phase in terms of how we see ourselves in our world. And when I look at the 30th day, of course, that's fascinating because, again, we're tied to the year, the 12 year, or 12 universal year, which is, you add the numbers 2 plus 1 plus 9, you have 12, 1 plus 2 equals 3. And so there's that 3 again, that idea of using our creativity, our emotional love for ourselves, our creative curiosity, and then the moon and sun being at 6 degrees, which is another one of the emotional numbers. So in the triad of emotion, 3, 6, and 9. And you will have noted that I did pull the 9 card from my deck. So that's also interesting that came through. So 3 and 6 are very emotional. It's about feeling your way into something. So not just doing things because you think you're supposed to, but this truly is this moment, this kind of precipice moment to go, I want to be guided by what I'm curious about, what I love, what I feel connected to, what I'm passionate about. So it's very much about this feeling of being pulled into being in love with this idea of creating something new and creating the world we want to live in, with that 3 and the 6. The 6, of course, being family, love, relationships, the home, creating a new environment for your home, your life, the way you live, the choices you're making. Again, great love of the your environment, your world. So kind of a sense of lightening up and bringing in the energy of what is truly magnificent, or allows you to move forward with ease because you're looking at things from the place of love. Mercury, having Mercury there is also with the mind, and then we know we've got Uranus who's involved, which is considered the higher mind. So there's definitely a connection with Mercury being at 2 degrees. And here we are in the 20th month, knowing we're preparing for the year 2020 going forward. So there's that double 20, and us making this recording on the 20th is also interesting because we have a 2020 today, the 20th day with the 20th month, so 2020. So we're actually having a mini experience. And in fact, this whole month, which I think I mentioned before, a whole month where we're experiencing or preparing for what is to come. Also very interesting is because we have the 6s going on, we also have 7s. There's quite a few 7s there, Mars at 7. Oh, and so we have Mars at 7 and a couple of others. So there's also this insight coming in, this energy of really coming to ourselves with this love of being or passion, but using insight. So there's a lot of clarity coming in. With the 2 as well is this highly intuitive number. 2s and 7s are highly intuitive. And we have Venus also at 11, which is also a 2. So we know there's a lot of this kind of energy of not only setting boundaries, but declaring what we are committing to as we go forward. So I think that's pretty exciting. And then I just want to mention the actual universal date, which if we're in a 20 months plus 3 is 23, which gives us the 5, that great number, the 23, which I think was significant last time. Which again, the Leo energy of the 23 is, this is about change. This is about something new and an adventure, really. When we had approached this all as an adventure with love and creativity and curiosity. What can we create?
Yeah, so looking at it from my perspective, well, the few thoughts, first of all, is that this is like one of the most yin charts I've seen in a long time. The Pallas Athena will have just moved into Scorpio, which is a water sign. So we have mostly water and earth. We only have Eris, Chiron, Jupiter, and Ceres in what would be normally called a masculine sign, but that's part of the book I'm writing. We're trying to get away from the male-female binary thing. So let's call it a yin chart. But my other perspective is we had the eclipses, okay, and they were in Cancer and Capricorn, where the nodes are, and it was very much about being reborn from the womb of Cancer and letting go of kind of the attachment to the outer rules, the man, those you give your power away to, that kind of energy. It's also been about reclaiming the kind of yin energy of Capricorn. And then we moved into last month, the Leo New Moon, which was, when was it? August the 1st in the UK. And we had at that time Venus, Moon, Sun, Mars, and Juno in Leo. Mercury was still on the eclipse degree of the full moon eclipse, 23 Cancer. And now, oh, you okay? all of that energy has moved now into Virgo. So we had a kind of the womb of Cancer, the creation of Leo, and now we're in this earthy, making very real, making very practical, making very useful. And here we have all the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Sun, and Moon, all within 9 degrees of each other. And how funny that they're within 9 degrees, and Jen pulled the 9 card. And she's talked about and I only realized that as I said it. And then Juno is right there as well, next to Mercury. And that's Juno's a funny one. She's known as the marriage relationship asteroid. I think there's a lot more to her than that. She's kind of like a flowering Venus, because her symbol is like this dandelion head, this flower head on the cross. And it's with the real meaning of the word Virgo, and being one who is whole unto themselves, let's say, not herself, and all the personal planets being within this 9 degree span of Virgo, it's like we're being recreated as whole, sufficient, self-sufficient human beings who are here to serve both ourselves, the earth, and others. And then, it's in square aspect to Ceres, in Sagittarius, who is there really asking us to tune in with the natural law, the natural cycles of the earth. And then we have the grand trine to Uranus in Taurus, the most manifest of earthly signs, ruled by Venus. And Uranus is saying, let's change how we do all this. And Saturn in Capricorn has been occulted every month by the moon, and is traveling with that south node to go back to that reclaiming the yin energy of Capricorn. It really feels almost like the circle of grandmothers, or the circle of wise elders. In fact, let's say the circle of grandmothers and grandfathers together is coming back together in this chart. It almost feels like the medicine wheels kind of being recreated in this chart to a degree.
Right. It's very interesting because, of course, Virgo is about health and about disease, as we've talked about before. And this is how we cut away the disease, is by finding balance or harmony. I also just noticed that we have 3 pairs in Virgo, which is fascinating, right? 3 pairs. So there's,
Yeah.
Mars and Venus together, Sun and Moon together, and Juno and Mercury together. So there's that male, female, or whatever you want to call it, yin and yang.
And you could say Juno and Mercury are the bisexuals.
Right, exactly. They are, right? And they, yeah, they represent. So it's everyone is being represented. And it's also the sense of inclusion, right? Having Juno in there as part of the life, right? Relationships in terms of all relationships.
Well, Juno does represent the rights of the oppressed and like women's rights and LGBTQ rights as well. So,
right. So it's pretty phenomenal. There she is, right in the middle of this this sacred six, and of course their numbers are so fascinating as well, as we mentioned. But just looking at the idea of connecting back to the 6, which is also a manifesting number, this is important to remember that this is what we're doing in this space here, is not just getting this information, not just downloading the idea, but actually being activated to go forward and make choices. I mean, this is really how we make choices, is we do things, especially with that connection to Uranus in Taurus. It's like, it's not enough to think about things. Now it's time to activate things and do them and test them out and risk things to have something different. So it's a very inspiring moon and chart, because it's showing us there's so many other ways to do Earth or to do life, or how we are representing ourselves, how we're living here and now. And so that's so fascinating to me. You have the 2 2s in the front, then the 2 6s, and then 1 7 and 1 11. So there's that, the 2 pairs are kind of exact, right? In a sense, they almost, well, they've got the whole numbers, the degrees. And then with the 7 of Mars is this kind of idea that I will be inspired and let go of old thinking and use my fire to create with the 11, which is that doorway, that master number that Venus is at, that she is expanding to enter into the space, step over the threshold, take her rightful place, and be an equal to Mars, and not be an underling or any of that. So I think this is really key here in the chart. And
well, of course, Venus is starting to move ahead of Mars and the Sun now, and she's going to re-emerge probably just a few days after this new moon as the evening star, heading towards her next retrograde. So she's leading the way, and I love that she's 11 degrees and 13 minutes. There's that magical number 13.
Right. Right. That's very goddess kind of, because 11 is about accepting your divine commission and kind of stepping into it and allowing that energy to flow in, the truth of who you are to flow in and go, right, this is what I'm here to do.
And we have a 2 at each end of that whole stellium.
Right. Isn't that amazing? Going from 2 to 11, but both returning to 2. And looking at Pluto, who's also 20, which is fascinating as well. So I think there is that aspect. And then, of course, we have the 5s that are interesting, because it's a 5 universal day. We have Ceres at 5. And we also have Saturn at 14, which is a 5. So there's a lot of repetition of the same numbers here that is quite unusual, I would say, because a lot of the same, Jupiter's at 16 degrees, 15, which is a 6. And then the nodes are at 16, which is also fascinating, because that's a 7. It's all about looking at your intuition and letting go, like really being tuned into what it is that you're wanting to create. And this is how we learn to create. Like, most of us don't actually have a good idea of how to create, because we've followed the existing model. People say, well, if you want to be successful, you go to university, you go here, you do this, blah, 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 blah. And those things are falling away. So to me, when I look at this, it's like the universe is saying, okay, this is how you create. First, you have a desire and understanding, you make connections, and then you start to kind of get curious about it and explore and be in a space of love instead of a space of being criticized, because that's the other aspect of Venus, Virgo, right? That's the exactitude. Oh, it has to be perfect. And remembering what divine perfection is not what human idea of perfection is, like make all the lines straight. But it's more about how do you move forward? How do you actually get things into creation and create a new body of work, a new body of experience, be more active in your life? It's by you do things, you make mistakes, then you fall off and then you correct. Oh, I see, this is in the wrong place. Let me go forward and do something else. So I think it's pretty fascinating how incredibly aligned they all are, and again being connected to Uranus, which I think we had last time as well, was that Uranus is like holding the kind of the rope of this energy, and they're pulling, and or he's pulling, right? Maybe he's pulling, and it's the wide kind of swing or pull. You're pulling and going, this is the way to go into the future. This is the way to like break through the resistance and the old thinking and the fear of being diseased. Because when you look at the spiritual aspect of the word disease, it means dis-ease, not having ease. And so we have worked in a very uncomfortable place trying to make things work, and now we're moving into a place where we can follow the flow. It doesn't mean it's going to be all easy.
Well, it's about building it ourselves, really, isn't it? And there's absolutely no air energy in this chart. The only air we've had for a while was Pallas Athena in Libra, who's still in Libra as we record this, but she has just moved into the deep water sign of Scorpio on this new moon, and there is absolutely no air. So what that makes me think of is, we've had over the last 2 years with all this Uranus Pluto square and all the changes that are happening, all this crap about ascension. And we're all going up somewhere, and we're all going to another, I don't know. We're not. We're all descending down into our humanity and remembering that we're all in it together, that this is what we have, this, in this lifetime, in this realm. There might be something else somewhere else, but that's not what we have here. And, we have to remember that we are human. We're all in it together. And we're connected to the earth and everything on it and all the material world. That doesn't mean you can't have do meditation, have mystical experiences, but you still have to live in the world. Even when you're having mystical, even if you go and live in a cave, you have to sit on the cave floor and
on something,
and you have to eat, and you have to keep warm and things like that.
Right.
So I think this chart, more than probably, it's been happening for a while, but more than before, is grounding us right down into our humanity and our humanness, and saying, just remember that this is what you have, this is what you're creating, the human self. You're not waiting till you die and go off to meet the big man on the cloud or whatever. You're here for a reason, and it's time to get kind of in the murk and the mud and mold it and create it the way you want it, including yourself.
Right. And I think this is a very powerful thing, because you were talking, what came to mind was the word cooperation, because twos are also, and sixes, when you love what you're doing, when you love that you are connected, which is what the 9 is also about. When you love what you're doing, then you realize that everyone has equal say, and compromise is not what we imagine it to be. We have all these ideas like, I've got to give up what I believe in so someone can have their way. That's not what this is about. This is about knowing clearly what you want and knowing the areas that you can say, well, this is definitely what I want. But this thing around here, I'm easy about it. Okay, I want chicken for lunch. I know I want chicken, but I don't mind having beet salad or lettuce or anything you choose, a salad we can share. And that's the same kind of thing here, is this idea of making those connections where we're actually working not against ourselves or going, oh, all these people don't believe this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Well, we can focus on that, but that's going to stop us from getting where we want to go. Instead of going, while they're all arguing, I'll just go ahead and do whatever I want to do. And that's the beauty of going, yes, the way we mold a new life and a new connection is by doing things. We're not that air thing. That's why there's no air, because we've got to stop talking about it.
Yes, doing.
We've talked ourselves to death, right? We've died.
Virgo is the true spirit of service, of being useful,
right.
And coming from that place of being whole. But we can't forget that the opposite sign is Pisces. So, to talk of bringing source or spirit or the mystical, the mystery in, it's bringing that down to earth. It's, and it always kind of cracks me up when I talk about this, because I am the least religious person ever, because of the way a lot of organized religion is. But my upbringing clearly comes back, because I also always think of the true message of the Christ, even in this, the myth of the Christ, the story of the Christ, no matter what you think it is. Of course, Jesus is my shamanic gatekeeper, which I also find really hilarious. So he speaks to me whenever this comes up, and he says, yeah, you're getting it. He's going, you're getting what the true message was, not what this bastardized message that we've had under the patriarchy has been. It's about, helping the leper and all that kind of stuff. It's about helping each other and remembering that we're all connected.
Exactly. And it's so interesting, because of course the number 6 is the 33 is the Christ conscious number, which then becomes 6, and 33, and it's very highly emotional, from the point of emotional intelligence, not doing things because I don't feel like it, or I'm pissed off, or whatever. I mean, not that stuff and the anger doesn't help drive things, but we have to be careful where we're driving and what we're focused on, because the journey into humanity is the spiritual journey. To think that the spiritual journey is perfecting ourselves to go somewhere and to be patted on the head by some old man that says, right, you did it, well done, now move along. That's all bullshit. It's like
enter the pearly gate.
That's so outrageous and ridiculous. And just like you were saying, Louise, this idea, when I hear people talking about us going to the 5th dimension and all that, I'm not saying that we're not going to new dimensions in the sense of our understanding, and that may be the 5th, or I don't know what number it is.
Yeah, whatever the number.
Yes.
But we are our consciousness is being raised.
Right, our consciousness is being raised, but the point is, it's being raised so that we can live in this body in a more wholesome way. And that means that wholeness, the connection, holy as well. We talk about wholesome or whole and holy. Those are all the same words. It's about being holy in every moment. It's about being holy with people like the leper, the people we don't like. Can we be holy in their presence? Can we see them as holy?
And that doesn't mean falling into servitude.
No, exactly.
It also means serving yourself first, looking at.
Right. Well, and it's interesting you bring that up, because 6 is the number of the martyr when it's out of balance, right? So 6 is the number of service, right? That's the 33, the 6. That's all about service. It's all about service to humanity. And the service to humanity comes when you are in your truth. So you don't have to wait for somebody to recognize you or to pat you on the back and say, well done, or neither do you need to follow someone else's rules. The truth is to be in that place of such deep joy that you give without worrying about what's in it for you, because the journey is what's in it for you. The ability to express yourself, to try new things, to be curious, to go to someone else and say, let's collaborate, let's do these things together, because I'm not my humanity or my sense of self is not lessened by someone else doing what I'm doing or someone else sharing the so-called glory with me. So it's very much about, I feel very spiritual. Virgo is a highly spiritual sign and feels very spiritual in the sense of the female spirituality, or if you want to call it the yin spirituality, where it's about compassion and service and recognizing others.
Sign of the Magdalene, isn't it?
Right. Like the washing of the feet, like that, to me, that signifies that's like the holiest thing you can do. Obviously, it's a visual. You don't need to go around washing people's feet, but you could certainly do that. But just think about when you're in such pure love and such ease in your body and your spirit that you could wash anyone's feet and not feel defiled by it. That's the ultimate.
And then we've got Uranus in Taurus, to talk about this kind of energy again of the true biblical message, if you like. He's the benevolent rebel. He's radical. He's shaking it up over there in Taurus. He's saying, change up how we do this. And what was my thought? Gone. It doesn't matter. Oh yes, I was going to talk about, but I can hear people going, but look at what's happening in the news, all these people's rights being taken away and all that kind of stuff. I still believe that all this is happening to have it all in our face, so we can look at our shadow, look at where we've kind of all gone wrong a little bit, so we can kind of readjust and bring it back to this more caring society, not nothing to do with politics there. This is the whole remembering we're in it together kind of thing. And looking after the earth too, all the problems are being brought to the surface so that we can shift our thinking and change and Uranus is radical change about that, and then Saturn in Capricorn at the other end of this earthy triangle. He's she really, Saturn, who's to say that the word Saturn was a male? That's just a patriarchal tale, really, because it's a very yin sign. And this is the grandmother. This is the wise elder. Let's bring our wisdom into all of this so that we can start to recreate groups. And I see it happening. I've talked about it before on the podcast. The permaculture groups around this where I live are just spouting up everywhere and that kind of thing. And people are creating gardens where they want to grow enough food to feed a small area and things like that. People are radically changing how they look at the world and how they think they have to be in the world or should be in the world or are in the world, whatever you want to say. Yeah.
Right, and it is fascinating when you do look at the Uranus and the Moon and Saturn, their whole connection together, very close. And of course, Saturn being at 14 means that it's about change. Saturn is changing, right?
Yeah.
And breaking through the old limitations. Saturn is saying, right, this is what you need to do. And I feel like that's what Uranus is doing. Uranus is saying, yeah, okay, you can talk about it, but I'm just going to drag you through this. So you're going to, the more you kind of complain and mutter about it, the deeper you're just going to go in the mud. So if you want to have an easier time, just go, yes, this is part of the journey. This is just part of the journey. Dealing with people that don't understand, dealing with people that have a different point of view. It's okay. It's okay for them to have that. It's okay for this to be part of the process. It's just a matter of where are you focusing? And that's the thing about Virgo is going, what's my daily habit? What's my daily life about? What am I doing to activate where I want change? So we can all feel it in our bodies, in the systems we're connected to. Everything's changing. And it's like, it's up to us. Do we want to lie in bed all day and eat bonbons and complain about what other people are doing? Or do we want to go, right, I got things to do. I got to get out in the fields. I got to start making things happen. I've got to get my voice and my truth out into the world, not because I want a reward, but because this is the time. This is the time to be of service. This is how I am of service. And of course, as Louis says, making sure you take care of yourself, because you're useless to others if you don't take care of yourself. That idea of sacrificing yourself to such a degree that you are useless is pointless. Like, you can't think straight. And when I think about some of our politicians and leaders and stuff, they're like burnt out. They're useless because they've taken things that were out of integrity. And this is, again, we've got all of these signs of pushing us to our integrity. I know we've talked about this before, but again, how can we be in integrity in every moment? Like, we make mistakes, and it's okay. So instead of sitting on our laurels about, oh, I made a mistake, I can't move forward, it's like, okay, I made that mistake. Good, now I can move forward with greater ease because now I've made that mistake and I'll make another one. So it really is about moving by mistake. It's like that thing, like, how many mistakes have I made? That means I'm actually successful. How many people are talking about me? More success. Like, I know I'm moving in the right direction. If no one's saying anything to me and I'm not making any mistakes, then clearly I need to get off my ass, right? Because nothing's happening. And so this is really what this part is about. Those politicians like that, to me, those leaders, they burn out because they've taken things that weren't theirs. They don't give a shit about it because they've lost their way. And so we can't follow them and we can't talk about them because it's just more energy to what they're doing instead of energy to what we need to be doing.
On a kind of more mundane note about the Virgo, I had to laugh because I was watching somebody else's video about the new moon.
Yeah.
And it made a great point. We're coming out of this Leo creative phase and into Virgo, the editing phase. And I'm about to go into editing my book.
That's so funny. But yes, but when you think about it in terms of, here we are at the absolute height of summer, really. We're coming in September, it's like the late harvest. It's the end of the season, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere.
But it's the end of the holidays.
Right, it's the end of the holidays. It's like the party, yay. Now, right. Now it's time to get into action. This is the mode where we're actually doing something with our harvest. We're moving into motion. We're beginning that kind of conquest of ourselves. Like, what is it that we are, what are we joining with? What forces are we joining with? What beliefs are we joining with? Because we know this is about, with Jupiter and all this, we know it's about breaking away from old beliefs, breaking away from servitude into action and knowing I'm in charge of my own experience. So do I want to be a servant, or do I want to be somebody who serves from a place of freedom? And there's a great difference in that. What's also interesting is, and we didn't mention, we might have mentioned before, is the fact that Regulus is now in Virgo. So we know that Regulus, who is the kingmaker or queenmaker in this case, or whatever we want to call it, the yin maker, if we're changing all of that, is the sense of crowning this with his influence, with opening that gateway into this idea that here we all have everything we need, all our personal planets lined up in a sign that is about order and is about paying attention and putting things in the right place, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, doing all the things that are necessary for regulation, which is funny, Regulus, regulation, right? It's the regulation of the future, and we decide, or we regulate our bodies, the way we work, the way we communicate with other people, how we bring our intuition in, our divine connection, and our physical human selves. It's like, how do we deal with being physical and being a soul and having all these other people we have to live with? Well, the way we do it is they throw us all together, get us fighting about all kinds of things, and then we learn to compromise. We go like, oh, well, there isn't enough water. What are we going to do? How are we going to help return? We actually need the earth to live. How are we going to return her back into her place? By creating things that we're not stripping her away, but we're refeeding her, a refueling system. We all need that.
So one other thought I had just as we were talking, and it's something I got from a fabulous little book I own on Venus. It's if anybody wants to, it's called The Mysteries of Venus. Okay, it's a little book I found, there we go, by Mark Lerner. And he talks a lot about the esoteric kind of energy of Venus, and how she's kind of the higher incarnation of Earth, and therefore our higher consciousness. And here she is on this new moon at this gateway degree of 11 degrees, and she's about to lead her way, separate away from the pack of all of those. The Mercury will be the first to catch up with her, and go into her evening star state, which is a more yin state, a more gentle, loving, kind state than morning star Venus. And she's really leading the way from this concentrated kind of new beginning of wholeness with all these personal planets. So I found that fascinating, that she's at that gateway. And it got to me when we said at the pearly gates. I said,
Right.
I thought perhaps this is the real pearly gates. You know, to go back to that, we're not waiting for till we die to do this. We're here now, and that's
right. And the beauty of this is, and of Venus, remembering she represents the great creator on Earth for us. All these female planets in different ways, but especially ones like Venus, represent that creation coming out of the waters, rising out of the water and the sand, and creating something new, something different. And kind of when we see those pictures, she's always in a space of moving forward. She is flowing forward. There's this incredible energy of movement. It's not like, oh, here I am, I've arrived. Yeah. It's more of that, you know, here I am, I've got things to do, and I'm moving forward, and giving ourselves that permission, regardless of who we are, what our sexual orientation is, and not saying, oh, well, this is a situation because I'm this, or because I'm old, or because I'm this or that. Says who, right? Yeah. Because who's in charge? And that's really what this feels like. It's like, how are we going to use our mind, use the divine energy, our intuition, our awareness to move into a state of grace, which gives us the ability to do all the things, to be that wild woman, to be that fierce believer and doer of things. Like, none of these signs are little lily white. They're all very strong, energetic. Everybody wants their seat at the table. Everyone wants to participate. So allow all these energies to participate, and be enlivened by this. What can you do for your health? What can you do for your state of mind and your state of being and your environment? Tidy up, clear up things, change things around, so you can begin to engage in the mystery of life and the creation of it by doing things. When things are in order, it's just so much easier to speak well, present yourself well, get your ideas out there in the world.
Speaking of Venus leading the way, I do want to mention that I had to quickly look it up, because I do believe she'll be visible again out of the beams of the sun on September the 12th, I read. It depends where you are on Earth, of course, because to get a visual, but approximately September the 12th, which is the day before the full moon in Pisces. And at that point, Mercury and Venus will be exactly conjunct at the last degree of Virgo. Wow. So it's like we've come from that time where Mercury was at the eclipse degree, through that rebirth, through creation, through this making whole and making real and practical. And then by the full moon on September the 13th, Venus will really have led the way out of there. And it's all going to, so there's 2 weeks really between now and, or between, sorry, the new moon and the full moon. is a huge period to really put structures in place, routines in place. That's all very Virgo as well. To, you know, if you've been meaning to, you know, I don't know, go and volunteer in a shelter, maybe it's time to go and actually commit that hour a week. I'm not saying everybody has to go and do that, but something in your life so that you're feeling more useful, you're feeling like what you're doing is contributing more to the greater good, then that 2 weeks is a really big 2 weeks to do that. So you can emerge by the middle of September ready for this time we're heading into with the big Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So,
right. This is what comes to mind is what we're forming as a new skeleton. So in order to put the skeleton in place, you really need to, just like this, you know, you need to put that structure, whatever it is, whatever you're going for. You need to dial it in and at least put that structure so it's easy to build upon it. Whether it's volunteering at a shelter or doing more meditation, like just even doing meditation is helpful to the world and yourself. Tending to plants, pulling up weeds, saying every day, I've started to meditate every day and do movement every day. I know I've done it on and off, but now I've really gotten into a rhythm and I'm continuing. So these are things that help me be more present in the world. This is about being more present. You know, we can be here instead of worrying about, oh, what's going to happen? Who's going to take care of us? We are, so we need to be present and here so we can go, right, this thing is a mess. It needs cleaning. That's taken care of. It needs something else added to it. I also think it's interesting, Chiron is at 4 degrees, because 4, there's that wounding or that idea of healing ourselves through structure, through going, that was the old way, that was the old me. I responded with pain and wounds. Now I'm responding with taking action away from that stuff. I'm moving away from people. This is the other thing I think that's big for this Virgo move, moving away from all the things that create disease in our life, that create illness, that create discomfort that keeps us, holds us down and drags us back into the places we don't want to be. So moving away from all of that.
Cool. Ooh. So should we do the symbols?
Yes, let's go for it.
We might be in under the hour for the first time ever.
Wow. That's amazing.
So, shall I do mine or are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the Chandra symbol for Virgo 7, incidentally, this new moon is exactly conjunct my Pluto in my 8th house. It's like everything that happens at the moment, oh, that's exactly conjunct something in my chart. No wonder things are kind of crazy at the minute. But anyway, a pie thrown in someone's face, which kind of made me really laugh. Action and reaction, reflexive mirroring of self by world and world by self. You are forced to confront yourself everywhere, starkly compelled to deal with karmas of the past returned. Who did what to whom? Conflict, strife, tension and pressure, mischief and the unexpected. On guard, agreeing to meet yourself through others and to find intimate reverberations from every side. You have an overwhelming experience of running into the consequences for even what you thought. A wraparound world of breakthroughs, quandaries, alliances, and dangers. On red alert 25 hours a day, knowing that you cannot turn your back on threat or opportunity. Everything is obvious and super subtle, gross and elusive, tightly known, and vastly beyond conception. Well, that to me just, means, it speaks to really kind of the butterfly effect. If what I do affects everybody else, everything ripples out. And, the consequences, doesn't imply punishment to me. It just implies this big awareness of the consequences of every little action. So how can we be the best person that we can? So we're sending love out into the world.
Right. Being more mindful about, if somebody does throw a pie in your face, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to laugh and try to throw a pie back? Are you going to you want revenge? I don't know, throwing a pie back, is that revenge? I think it all depends on how you come to it, right?
Yes,
if you're laughing and enjoying it, or if you want to get back at someone. And remembering that is using up your energy. You want to prove a point and do all those things. If you just want to laugh, hey, that's what happened. Now I'm free to move to the next phase. So it's kind of a fun thing, something to think about, an exercise to kind of work on. What would I do?
It is very Virgo-y to me, though, because this constant analysis,
Yes.
It's analyzing the impact of everything, really, on everything. That's what.
Right.
Not
And
in
it's
a guilt way. Don't fall into guilt, please. There's awareness.
Right.
There's awareness, and there's then there's taking it too far.
Right. It's overreaction, like really focusing on the wrong thing, right? Because what's yours to do, right? How can you be of service if you're worried about how people are treating you? All right. So the Sabian symbol is Virgo 7 is a harem. And the keynote is a fateful, even if sought after, subservience to the vagaries or desires of the emotional nature. So they're saying that this symbol is related to the preceding one, which was about a merry-go-round. Yes, a merry-go-round. The first experience of the dynamic intensity of life process and the possibility of using them to reach a characteristic ego satisfaction. So all about our desires. So a deeply contrasting phase of the emotional and cultural life. So this experience, as opposed to the other one, is a passive one. So the merry-go-round is dynamic and this is passive. Yet there may be, for the woman or men in the harem, some soul is usually woman, but I don't know why there couldn't be men, in the harem, some sort of cyclical pattern and a prize to reach, the sultan's favor. So in both cases, whether you're on the merry-go-round or you're in the harem, the motive power is exterior to the experiencer, who is caught in a pattern of forces over which he or she has no control. Yet the child may purposefully use his small allowance to get a ride, and the woman may use her charm to attract the attention of her master. The individual in both cases finds himself one with a number of other individuals, all seeking or being subjected to the same type of experience or fate. So here it is that you can become addicted to the excitement of the merry-go-round, or wanting or becoming a slave to the hope of recapturing the exaltation of the initial experience. Yet one may learn how to put to use even the emptiness of waiting.
That reminds me of something I read the other day, and it's an old thing. It's a book, I think, or something that says, "Be the hollow bone."
That's perfect, right? Be the hollow bone. I think this is a lot of what we talked about, the skeleton, the idea of being new. So you're new to an experience. So instead of getting caught in the idea of wanting someone to pay you attention or wanting to go on the ride because it's exhilarating, looking beyond, and that emptiness, that meditation, that recognition of allowing yourself to know who you are through the stillness, and so you can act from that place, is indeed very powerful.
Awesome. Okay, so Jen, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Absolutely. So my website is jenduchenne.com. My cards are the Illuminating Journey cards. You can find them on my website at jenduchenne.com/illuminating journey cards. The Soul Pillar Salon is there too. I have a group on Facebook called the what's it called? I'm going to have to change that name.
We're weirdos.
Remember it.
I can't remember either.
The woo-woo weirdos, the light club of the woo-woo weirdos of the world. So I think I'm going to have to change it. But yes, it's there. And I've also just started a page, Jen Duchenne. I'm on Instagram. I do weekly videos on the energies with the cards on YouTube. And I'm pretty much everywhere, I guess. And so, yes, you can find me, website, or Google my name, Jen Duchenne. Or you can reach me by email, jen@jenduchenne.com. Oh, and my class that I mentioned, you can just shoot me an email or look on Facebook. I have posted it there.
Cool. And I'm Louise Eddington, and you'll find me on my website, louiseeddington.com or yourcosmicblueprint.com. Will take you to the same place. And on that homepage, there's buttons that say various ways to find me or work with me, some free, some membership, and I also do astrology readings. My book's available on Amazon everywhere in the world, and coming on Audible, Modern Astrology again. And I have a Facebook group called the Planetary Magic Cafe, where I do a once a month open cafe call on Zoom for free, where I kind of look at the energies of the month ahead and pull a few cards and things like that. And that's coming up next week on the 30th, I think. Or is it? No, it's on a week on Monday, September the 2nd. So come join the group, come join the call. I always record it if you can't come live. I have a Facebook page, Louise Eddington Astrologer. I'm on Instagram, Louise Eddington. I think that's it. So, and don't forget to send your questions and leave us your reviews. So it's weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com. And your question might be featured on the next episode. So for now, it's goodbye from Lou.
And goodbye from Jen.